Mm-hmm.
A teacher is just that much harsher than a teacher voice. I'm telling you,
Teacher looks make people uncomfortable.
I've gum across the mall.
I said Megan.
Are we online now?
Who are we putting in the waiting room? What?
I was bringing Megan in.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm so confused.
Are we on?
Yes, we
Yes, we are.
are.
We're on.
Okay. Okay, very good. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Oak, Director of Labor Relations and Human Resources over at the district office for the school district of Indian River County. I'm here in the house of IRCEA today, where we're conducting negotiations with our new president, Jennifer Freeland, and our emeritus president, Liz Cannon, and the bargaining team. So I want to thank them for hosting today's negotiation session. And I'll have everybody go around the table and introduce themselves, if that would be okay.
I can start. I think I've met some of you guys. I'm so fun to learn everybody's names. Hello to those joining us virtually. I'm Rick Meyer, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction.
Jermaine Johnson, IRCA.
Carla Cundiff, IRCEA.
Gary Simmons, Service Unit Director for FEA.
Liz Cannon, IRCEA.
Jennifer Freeland, IRCEA.
Ren Robb, IRCEA.
Matt Rollo, IRCEA.
Megan Ruggiero, IRCEA.
I'm Miss Lenz, FEA Southern Regional Specialist.
Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us today. It's so weird having Matt over there as opposed to by the.
I'm in the camera. I'm not using the camera now.
So wanted to thank the association for coming together with us today to have a negotiation session in regard to changes brought on by our Twilight Zone COVID-19 situation we've been in for the last few months. So we appreciate the openness in which you guys are willing to sit down and have discussions with us and hopefully find solutions for things that are issues out there. So if I may, do you guys have any comments or ideas or questions first before we get going?
Nope, we're
waiting for you.
All right. I'm going to have Richard introduce kind of the concept that was previously discussed, and then I'll present the proposal to you.
Great, and thank you, Michelle, and thank you everybody for being here. I think that we're all here because of me, so I apologize, but hopefully this is well worth all of your time. I was tasked by Dr. Moore and the group to think about next year and think about what we can do to ensure that our students are put in a position to be most successful as they return, right? And so we know that we lost a lot of instructional time, face-to-face instructional time, although I think that you guys did just tremendous work. Really need to be commended for the work you did during that final quarter there to support the kids and are continuing to do during the summer. But we know we lost that face-to-face time, and we want to ensure that next year when we return that we maximize the instructional time that we have throughout the course of the year. And so one of the things that often comes up when we talk about maximizing instructional time is reducing assessments. And so our assessment committee had been formulating a recommendation, which was to reduce the unit assessments that we give and to eliminate the semester exams that we give. And so by doing so, it would, that's to me is a win-win in the increase in instructional time. So that was one of the proposals that I was bringing forward to Dr. Moore to let him know what from the CNI realm we thought we could do to increase that instructional time to make up time loss compared to what we normally do here in Indian River. Now with that, I came to the realization that if we were to go forward with that it would create a situation where we wouldn't need as many modified days at the end of the semester, right? Because if we're not giving those really lengthy semester exams at the end of the first and second semester, we wouldn't need as many modified days for which to grade them or modify those schedules of which to give those exams. And so then it became a matter of what could we do better with that time? And that's where I came up with the idea of possibly moving 2 of the modified instructional days from the end of each semester to the beginning of the year, so that we're beginning the year with 4 modified instructional days that August 10th through August 13th timeframe. Now, as you guys know, you guys have been in the business, you've done this, some of you many more years, many more first days of schools than I have. Establishing those structures and routines for every aspect of the school day, those first few days are paramount to the future success that you're going to see within the year. And so we know that, you know, as Dr. Moore, he's sort of coined this, I have to give him credit. It's not just the reestablishment of routines, it's the establishment of brand new routines. There's going to be a lot of things that we have never had to experience these first couple of days back. And we want to ensure that we maximize that time on the routines and not stress the kids out about, you know, academic time. We can recoup that academic time, you know, later on by reducing the testing and the exams. But by the new policy of the modified instructional days at the beginning of the year, I think the focus would be on arrival procedures, you know, making sure that everybody gets there safe. We all know that the bus routes and the parent drop off and the parking lots and getting into the classroom and all those sort of things take longer on those first couple of days. The cafeteria procedures take longer because we're trying to figure out our lunch numbers at elementary school and everything else in the cafeteria. And then the dismissal procedures, you know, take longer. Now you add to that, you know, the washing of the hands, the social distancing, how we're going to move around between classrooms, all these sort of things we think and we believe would be best focused on those first 4 days so that the students feel, you know, safe, secure, that they're not being pressured about, oh, let's sit down and take an already tested right now. You know, let's get in and focus on that social emotional. So if we did those modified instructional days, you know, we have those added benefits that I just proposed, but also a couple other things I think are really important. You know, what you'll see then by sending the students home earlier is that we've reduced the exposure time but between everybody, right? We know that the COVID-19 is still out there, and we know that, you know, the length of exposure time is one of the risk factors of what's going on. And so we're reducing the exposure time between everybody in those first couple of days to make sure that we, you know, are stepping into things gradually so that if someone did show up with a fever, that we can get them out quicker. You know, you get the cleaning ability that our custodians will be able to, you know, start work on cleaning the buildings earlier because the kids leave earlier, which is another one of those operational things that would be different the first couple of days. And then to me, one of the things that I always like to do as much as I could when I was a principal was debrief with my leadership teams, debrief with my teachers at the end of the first couple of days and say, what's working right, what's not working, what do we need to change? Let's really be reflective as quickly as possible to make those changes. So, you know, by getting the kids out of the building earlier, it enables the leadership teams to come together and make sure that we are, you know, having that touch point. Because if we're waiting all the way to the end of the day, you're trying to find those times. People are going to be working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock. No, they may not be doing that anyway. We know that's how those first couple of days generally are. But at least it will enable us to have a more structured possible debrief. So all those sort of things, I think are big wins. You know, we can focus on the social emotional aspect of what's going on. Begin in earnest there on Friday. You know, the next week, you know, full days. So I think to myself, you know, by eliminating the assessment, that's a good step in, a good phase into what's going on. Obviously, a lot of unknowns. You guys may have questions about what is it going to look like when we start back to school. I probably can't answer a lot of those right now. I can probably, you know, give you my best guess, but who knows? It could change tomorrow. But really just, it could change, right? It could change before I finish this sentence. So, you know, but thinking about what we do with curriculum instruction and why we do assessment. I mean, I remember the first time I came in here to talk with you guys and we were still in the midst of a lot of the pay discussions, and someone asked me a question about curriculum instruction. I said over there, yes, curriculum instruction questions. You know, because that's my bread and butter. That's what I do. And that's what I eat, sleep, and breathe. And so when I think about the number of assessments that we give, they need to be meaningful, right? And I know that there's going to be questions if we eliminate assessments. How does that impact teacher evaluations? Which isn't exactly under my realm, but it's something that I really want to be involved in. If I've heard that there's a possibility we can maybe readdress some of that and move forward. Dr. Moore wants to take a hard look at everything in the district to improve it. So it's best by the whole system, right? We always say best by kids, but what's best by kids is what's best by teachers. And so the evaluation system, I think, could take a look. You know, I was at the Department of Education for the past 4 years and can tell you guys some of the inner working stories about how we got here. Obviously, we got here before I got there, but they told me how it was all working and the history of it. You know, the organizations that push for those teacher evaluations to be based on student growth and achievement, and how that was a big focus of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a number of years ago, that they thought that by pushing for that, it was going to change teacher practice, and that was going to be the growth. That sort of fell by the wayside. That isn't the prevalent thinking up there right now. The prevalent thinking about what's going to increase student achievement is standards aligned instruction, quality standards, quality instructional materials. We know that the quality of the teacher in the classroom is the biggest indicator of teacher success, but we believe, Dr. Moore and I, that that's not done through just measuring and assigning a value to the teachers, through coaching. And so we're having a big push around instructional coaching this year to train and provide you guys the support that you need to get better. Well, you do have to measure it. Don't get me wrong. I think measurement is important. You got to measure where you're at so you know where you can spur improvements. But to make teachers feel like that student growth metric is the end all be all of their evaluation, I'll tell you the state is moving away from that as a huge emphasis. I was sharing with Michelle, my former district, Wakulla County. We had moved to where that was only 33% of the evaluation, so that the teachers could work directly with the principals and get the training, get the feedback support that they need, so that it's not left to chance on an assessment. That you're really working more towards meeting the expectations, getting the coaching support, and improving the practice so that the evaluations are more indicative of what happens. But that's a discussion to go further down the road. Like I said, I want you to know I'm cognizant of that. I want you to know I'm aware of that. I want you to know I'm willing to make strides in that personally and be a part of that discussion. But for this next year, how this would affect those situations, there's no reason why that the teachers that would need to give one of those sort of local assessments so that they had a measure for their student growth, that they couldn't also do that, right? I mean, there's no state requirements as to what that is. The statute simply says that it's approved by the principal. So in working with the principals, I can certainly commit that on the administrative side to work with the teachers to ensure that as we eliminate those lengthy exams that aren't shown to really be evidence-based and improving student practice, that we create meaningful, shorter, appropriate teacher created locally assessments so that we can measure that student growth and achievement. So I know those questions will be there from some of the members. I get that, but I guess I would challenge, how do we know those very long, lengthy semester exams can be even multiple weeks really out of our instructional calendar? We're really doing the best job for that either. So,
I do want to just point out that the lengthy exams have been watered down so much over the past few years. It started as on the assessment calendar, if I'm not mistaken, because a lot of time is 2 hours, but then on the assessment calendar, it went to 90 minutes, and then it went down to 60 minutes. So I assure you, they're not that long. And, just because we have the 2 hour span, basically that was incorporated so that we can give extra time for, that there was a time allotted for extra time. Additionally, throughout the years, something that we've had no collective bargaining control over is the student progression plan, where that semester exam score began to count for less and less. So that students, particularly at your high school level, have taken it less and less seriously, because frankly, I've gotten a C in one quarter. I don't need to lift another finger, and I still passed the semester. And it is that, so they haven't been the lengthy exams. We've been, at least having the separate exam time has given to some of our students the view that it is more important than the classroom test. So that's, I agree. I don't think long tests, truthfully, FSA, I think that needs to be broken up into little tests as well, but that's a whole other point entirely. But they haven't, I know that the DOE is recognizing this. Unfortunately, the one big problem is the legislature needs to recognize this. That is our biggest problem. The legislature still tells us we need test scores to measure teacher.
Absolutely.
And so, that's one issue with this. Another issue with this, and currently as the language stands, those 6 days, the afternoons of those days are teacher work days. Dr. Moore said something in the meeting, the think tank meeting, and how the time outside the student day, and we've got a lot of that. Not as much as you think.
Not really.
We don't have a lot of that. A lot of that is taken up with this training, that training, non-instructional duties, and at the elementary level in particular, lots and lots of non-instructional duties. Planning, collaborative planning, forced collaborative planning. You know, I mean, everybody come to the cafeteria so we can watch you all plan, you know, instead of go where your materials are so that you can, but so when we're talking about losing teacher work days that are guaranteed by our contract, it gets the hackles up.
Sure.
So I just want you to be aware that these are some of, and that was hard fought language to get into our contracts. So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely.
And from a contract standpoint, you know, we're really talking about just I'm gonna hand out what we had kind of proposed, but we're really talking about Article 3, which is you know,
Yes.
where we always seem to live with these discussions.
Thank you.
And, and I was suggesting in here, you know, the two modifications, changing the Article 3(1)(I) to one of the last days of the 90-day term and of the 180-day term will be designated as shortened days, blah, 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 blah. And then that really just a separate item too, that we're agreeing to the elimination of all of the end of semester exams, modifying the grading scale and the progression plan to reflect this change. And that's really kind of what we're talking about with respect to this proposed change. The question about, you know, is that the right way to go about doing this is the question we have for the association. You can see the goal is to eliminate some of that extra work of these long or short, you know, end of the semester exams, which I think most teachers would be in favor of because it seems like that's an extra task on top of all planning that they've already had to do. But changing Article 3(1)(I) is really the key question I have here.
It's key for us too, because it seems like we have a lot of non-contact time, but when you really start narrowing it down, we really don't have a lot of non-contact time. So, thank you.
Yeah.
But
I'm
what
just
you,
thinking about this calendar next year. I
But
agree on what you're saying
it's-
about the
I mean, those are days that
Uh-huh.
we work. I mean, there's not student work that has to get done.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to recoup that?
Okay. And when you think about that, you know, how would we recoup that? What kind of thoughts come to your mind?
Well, we have a couple of thoughts. One, you know, and I know I've talked to you about this before when we, in 2015, when we agreed to move to the 8-hour day, I was kind of hated for a little while because it, you know, I mean, yes, the rationale for it is we were working it anyway. And yes, we all work longer than 8 hours a day for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But that 30
But
minutes
it's different when it's by
was
choice.
hours, you know, and that's, you know, I mean, I don't think, you know, I mean, even when I leave here at 4:30, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting a half day. That 30 minutes and it reduced hourly rates and things like that. So there were a lot of impacts. So that is one thing we'd be willing to discuss. The other, it does involve that time outside the student day. And I believe you might have been familiar with it where we did propose at one point. So when we went to that additional 30 minutes, is one of our problems was they talked about, you know, we can use it for professional development. And at that same time, we had just recently during that time had a professional development in which we played Operation and
made a skit.
and made a skit. And so our professional development offerings were not substantive.
At the risk of being a smart aleck, you've all remembered that training.
But I don't remember why
I
we
don't
did it.
remember.
I can't
I
tell
will
you
tell
why
you
we
what.
did it.
I remember playing Operation. I have no idea how it applied to my teaching.
Okay.
No
So,
idea.
Good
Yes. And so the bottom, I mean, but yes, that part was very memorable. But as I said, it did not have any implications on my instructional practice. And so we did right into that. And I'll tell you, it was a little weak at the time, where that additional time, principals could only use 60% of it. Well, they took it that they only get 60% of the 30 minutes. So when I refer back to this again, our elementary teachers in particular, because secondary non-instructional duties tend to be spread out a little bit more.
Well, the difference really is the amount of supervision the kids need.
Yeah.
It's very different between the two.
Well, and so elementary teachers have significantly more non-instructional duties than do secondary teachers. And then in addition to that, this was something else that was being pushed more by elementary. Now, I'm not saying that at secondary, some of them didn't do it, but this again is a more predominantly elementary. Those 3 days of that they could use the time, they used every single second that they could. And they'd have, like I said, the collaborative plannings. Everybody has to come to the library or the cafeteria so we can watch the collaboratively plan, instead of, let's go where the materials are and let's do, let's sit down in your classroom and do that.
We do that with our
There's
coaches, too.
a lot more there. The structure is so much more micromanaging of that time. You chose us. Somebody hired me as a teacher because of my professional skills and whatnot. Then allow me the professionalism to be able to go to my room and plan, or be able to work with my team to plan for instruction. Now, if you see that plan for instruction is not applying to the standards then yes, come in and coach us and everything like that. But babysitting us while we do it is insulting. And unfortunately, that's happening a lot more and it seemed to be expanding as we went along. So I don't have the contract directly in front of me, but do you have the paper? In item E, where we have, that's where that 60% is.
Sorry, that's
We
my
had
extra copy.
proposed something 2 years ago before you got here, when we were negotiating against ourselves,
Which
to where we added the part where time outside the student day may be used to schedule meetings, professional development, and other activities at the principal's discretion, up to 60% the number of days each month. This includes non-instructional duties as referenced in section 3E of this section. So while, because part of the problem with the 60%, it was interpreted and that it was only that half an hour, and every other minute outside the instructional day was free to suck the life out of, and they did. So by doing this, it could lessen or even out the non-instructional duties, so to speak, because so that, well, at this school you only do it 1 day a week, but at this school you have it every single day, and that's by balancing it out and having a qualifier for it, so to speak.
So are you saying that,
It would also add some of this time back.
so
If I give it back
if I can kind of repeat it back to you so I understand. Your first idea was the issue of,
There goes Zoom.
Laptops ain't on Wi-Fi, man.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi's
hey,
on.
we kept you guys.
No, they're frozen.
Are they?
Yeah.
Somebody move over there.
That's ours.
That's us moving.
Oh. All right.
Okay, you guys keep doing this because I know what it is.
Well, it's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes
Okay,
for
then
the
I'll
Wi-Fi
keep
to
it.
reboot, because that's the only thing that's not on a battery backup.
so do we keep going or do we?
Yeah, we can. We should.